Take a look behind the curtain with a real whistleblower and American patriot. Prepare to embrace the uncomfortable truth because this program has no time for comforting lies. Here is civil liberties enthusiast, Second Amendment defender, and recovering FBI agent Kyle Seraphin.
Well, hello, my friends, and welcome to the Kyle Seraphin Show for Thursday, July the 17th. Thanks for being with us. It must be 9:30 on the East Coast, 8:30 here in Texas, America, because we are rolling live on all the places that we do so. If you're joining us on X, fantastic. Appreciate it. Give us a like over there. Hit the little heart button that's on the bottom if you don't mind. If you're joining us over on Rumble or if you're joining us on YouTube, same thing. It's a thumbs up. Will you give us one of those? It would be appreciated. It bumps up the algorithmic whatever reckoning. We've been making it, even though we're a lot smaller than most of the channels, we've been making it on the top 50 leaderboard on Rumble in the low, the high 40s rather. So at the bottom of the leaderboard, but we're making it on the leaderboard. Nonetheless, that is a tribute to all of you who are doing what you're doing. Came up with something this morning. I realized that I'm greedy. I've been greedy. And I'll probably continue to be greedy. I think that's an affliction many of us have. If we're being totally serious about it, avarice, right? It's a sin. But we want more than what we need. And what I needed was my friend Steve Baker to not go to prison. What I needed was a DOJ to not come after me and my family. And that's what I voted for. That's what I voted for in November. It was very transactional. I think Steve Friend has been on our program and said similar things. It was a transactional relationship saying we need Donald Trump to de-weaponize at least the bite that's happening. Maybe not get rid of the fangs, although that's what we wanted, but maybe no bites. And we got that. My friend Steve Baker is not in prison. I actually had a fantastic sit down yesterday, and this Sunday's Sunday sit down will be very, I think, entertaining. I got a chance to talk to Enrique Tarrio, who was serving 22 years for seditious conspiracy. And he said something that I totally respect. He said that he was not going to attack Donald Trump for anything, period, because he essentially owes his life and his freedom to that man. And so he may not agree with everything he does, but at the end of the day, he's really grateful. And I can appreciate that. There's a certain amount of loyalty that makes sense there. Again, transactional. So I feel the same way. I got what I needed. My friends are not in jail. I got the text this morning. I got a voice message this morning from Steve Baker. Yet another reminder that my buddy and Blaze correspondent, he's not in prison. And he had to plead guilty to something, and then he got pardoned. That's all good. There's some things that are not good. Right now, you're seeing strife. You're seeing a moment of mental discord, a sort of a cognitive dissonance that's happening on the political right. I think it's a permanent condition for those on the political left. I think the things that they think are constantly at odds with each other. But people on the right were led to believe that they were going to be getting transparency, reform of agency. They were going to be getting information about elite pedophiles. And a lot of that didn't actually come from Donald Trump. What you're not going to see me do is say that what is happening right now is good, because it's not. It's really poor messaging. When I did my program yesterday, what I was honing in on is there is a spectrum that exists based on the available information that the public has. And everybody believes everybody that's very upset right now with Donald Trump and the Justice Department and so on, I think rightfully so. But the thing they're frustrated about is not what they think is frustrating. They believe one thing, and there's not a lot of evidence available to you that it's true. There's a left and a right spectrum. So if you're looking at me, you're seeing, here's the left end of that spectrum. The left end is elite government pedophiles were involved, and super wealthy business people were involved in trafficking of children. They use that word, but what they mean is like young women who were in their like early teens or late teens. So kind of grayish historically. That's what they're talking about. So we have this image. It's going to be like 8-year-olds, but in reality, it's probably like 16-year-olds. Okay. Still not good. They have this belief that these elite, wealthy people are getting a second system of justice. I talked about the triangle that exists. We're talking about corruption. We're talking about 2 tiers of justice. And we're talking about hurting kids. That is a very emotional triad. That's one side of it. And then on the other side of it is maybe none of that exists, which is essentially what is being argued. But our government did a terrible job of rolling it out because you had an attorney general tell you this is what the problem is. I've seen the footage. It exists. It's going to shock you. They've come forward and said all the things that would get you whipped up into that frenzy. And I don't know why. So it's somewhere between a really bad messaging campaign about what's out there, and they didn't ever have the evidence, and something like the worst thing in human history. All of those things are gross. All of those things need to correct. And I don't think Trump did a good job with it. But he did make sure that my friend's not in jail. We're going to get into some of those. We've got some other things because the rest of the world is still moving on. How about the failed culture of both New York and Los Angeles, or California more broadly? Two states that do things that I can't stand. Like, they're commie nations to me. They don't even fit inside. When people tell me, this, and this, I'm from New York. I go, oh, that's interesting. I'm an American. That doesn't have any bearing on me. For all of you in New York right now, if you're upset about this, I'm going to show you some sort of evidence. When you have to hire people to take care of your stuff because of the stupidity of the place where you live, it should be a reminder to you that, like, this is not a sustainable system. I'm going to show you a video that I popped up. I think it's going viral right now, but it's worth doing a meta-analysis of it. We're going to do all those things and more. First, how about we talk about my friends over at Silent? You can see on the desk right now, I am carrying my phone in our Silent Faraday sleeve. I have multiple sleeves. They're really, really effective. You guys should be checking them out. It doesn't matter whether we're talking about big tech, whether we're talking about our federal government, whether we're talking about thieves or scammers. You are constantly pinging the world and washing them with your RF signal. That's the radio frequencies emitted from your phones, your tablets, your laptops, et cetera, et cetera. If you want to make sure that those things are your signals and not somebody else's, particularly when you're on public transportation, when you're walking out in public, if you're going into a big building, if you're just generally out about in the world and you are not in your home, you might want to consider a product from Silent. slnt.com/KYLE. They're a fantastic product. They make a thing that works, which is a big deal when you're talking about this kind of stuff, because almost all Faraday products that are cheap and inferior will leak. It costs money to make something that's good, that doesn't have the leaks. They have to be able to make sure that it actually insulates. And all you got to do, these are very simple. You simply toss your phone, your tablet, your laptop, etc., into these sleeves, close them up, and they're good to go. And then they make really convenient carrying packs. They make entire backpacks that you can throw in, like a dry bag. I have one of those sitting behind me. Or you can have something that has a smaller solution that also carries a lot of stuff. The E3 Everyday Faraday Backpack is something that's sitting right outside of my studio. It's got all my streaming gear in there. It's a really, really elegant solution to carrying stuff. It's a great backpack straight up front. And then, of course, it also has two magnetically sealed options to be able to put a Faraday case in there. They're not cheap, but they're really good. And if you guys have ever gone in the backpack world, like a cheap backpack is well over $100. Something with features is going to cost you $200-$300. That's where these things land. Get 15% off with my promo code. It's KYLE. Again, it's silent with no vowels. So slnt.com/KYLE. And then make sure you use the promo code Kyle. You'll get free shipping on qualified orders. You get 15% off. Check their stuff out. It all looks really good in pictures. It's actually really, really good when you hold it too. And I got to touch all their stuff at the SHOT Show earlier this year. Big fan of their products. I'm a gear guy. I'm telling you, it's good. You can take that to the bank. Just because I wouldn't advertise for something that I don't like. I've even got another one of their things sitting right here on the desk. All right, let's get into today's program. We got a lot to cover. I'm going to do my best to be tight with it and try to have a message that is not only negative or crying about something, but I don't like being called a weakling simply because I'm recognizing there is a problem with your messaging. Here we go. Let's get into it right now. And so, my friends, let's start with a tale of not America. There's a kind of a funny little aside that we had. My wife is from New York. She grew up in New York City. She grew up in Brooklyn, but she was born in Manhattan. I think I got that right. I don't know the actual hospital name. I was born on the other coast, which is also not America. I was born out in California. And that's also shocking to people when they sort of hear sort of the story. I was born in Berkeley, California. And I drive a diesel truck, and I'm a military veteran who has more guns than I have friends. So that's an interesting sort of movement. One of the things that we have to consider is when you look at those places, are they the harbinger of what's to come? And do they show us like a stupidity that we should recognize is not good for the rest of the country? We had some friends come and visit us when we were living in Texas early on. I think we were just married, something like that. And some buddies from New York came down to Texas and they wanted to go shoot some guns. So we went out to a shooting range to go shoot some guns. And we went in, and like a lot of places that have some tourists come in, it's a barbecue place down in Lockhart. There's a shooting range down in Lockhart, Texas. If you're familiar with barbecue and you know about Texas barbecue, Lockhart is a destination. This particular gun range had a pro shop, they had a wall, and they had a like a poster of the United States. It was a U.S. map with a bunch of push pins on it. You've probably seen these before, where visitors can come in, they can take a pin, and they can stick it in where they're from. And these guys were a little bit incensed because over the state of New York was a little bit of construction paper. They had cut it out in the shape of New York. They traced it and they glued it over the top of New York. So instead of having the cities and the topographical map or whatever the hell it was, the urban map of New York, and the same thing in California, there was a piece of construction paper covering both of those states, and it was handwritten on there, "Not America," which is a sentiment that I think I am not alone, because I've now seen it at a business, and this is going back, probably 12 years, something like that. And my wife's friends were like, "What the hell? Like, it's America. We're from New York. New York's great America." And the answer is it really though? Because they couldn't own guns. They didn't have the freedom to go to a gun range the way we did. They didn't have the ability to own any of the things that we brought with us to try out. And so it was kind of just a little reminder and kind of a little nub at New Yorkers and also Californians that you don't experience America the way that we experience America in the rest of the country. And yet they still want to kind of shove it down your throat that we should be doing what they're doing. Trump administration, this is all going somewhere, obviously. The Trump administration just clawed back billions of dollars from federal funding for California's dumbest project, which has always seemed like a political grift to me. There are shows that reference this, things like the show Goliath. It's been in popular television and popular culture. But the train to nowhere is apparently going to lose $4 billion in federal funding. And I think it's worth discussing that it does talk about a broader problem. We do need people to be able to build things with tangible skills, and building a railway is as good as any other tangible skill in America. And yet it actually should make some sense. It should have some marketability. And if you have to have jobs that simply exist for the sake of the job and not to actually serve a public good, or if the underlying public good is already really dumb, there are buses, there are automobiles, and thus federal highways. There are planes. There are ways to get from places in California, and you could do it very efficiently, and it's pretty inexpensive. And so spending billions and billions of dollars on a train system that nobody requires and is not going to do a great job of doing it and is taking forever to go. They've been building it at least since 2008, as far as I can tell. It's getting clawed back, and I don't think the federal government should be subsidizing it, even though they often do. So the Trump administration has revoked the federal funding for California's high-speed rail project, intensifying the uncertainty on how the state will make good on its long-delayed promise, that's the real key here, long-delayed, of building a bullet train that takes riders from San Francisco to Los Angeles. And I'm not confident in why they need this. And I don't think anyone else is either. It's a cool idea, except if it doesn't actually exist where people are going to invest in the project and set it up, then why have it? Again, there's highway systems that do this. There are planes that do it very efficiently. And we already subsidized the airline system. So why are we building this infrastructure piece that does nothing other than there's a land grab that happened. There's a bunch of eminent domain projects. There's a bunch of people who invested in land that would be adjacent to said bullet train. And it does seem like that was kind of a scratch my back political boondoggle. Kind of dangerous. The U.S. Department of Transportation has announced that it will be pulling back $4 billion in funding from the project weeks after signaling that it would do so. I wonder if that land is now going to be worth less. Is that going to screw over the Gavin Newsom donors that hope that he would be there? Again, this needs to be codified that they're not going to do this. They should actually limit, if Congress was serious, some of the things they can do with transportation funding, because this seems like a terrible idea. Overall, less than a quarter of the project's funding does come from the federal government, so you've lost 25%. Are they going to raise it in taxes in California? God forbid. If you live there, you already know they probably will come for you, especially if you make any money. The rest has to come from the state, mainly through voter-approved bond programs. So they're going to borrow against it and loan it out and hope that people are going to buy these junk bonds to be able to build something that may never exist. And the money can come from cap and trade programs. So the train to nowhere, what did he say? Trump said the railroad was promised, it still doesn't exist, and it never will. The project was severely overpriced, overregulated, and never delivered. I mean, yeah, we're talking about something. How deep in the weeds is it right now? It's almost 17 years deep, and you got nothing. Not a great way, not a great start. And it reminded me of this little video that I saw about New York City, which has similarly dumb ideas. Some of you have lived in cities where they have street sweeping and they have alternate parking for the street. I've personally watched my father-in-law hang out in his car for hours, which wasn't a very nice car anyway. It was an old like 90s BMW that he had in the city because he didn't want to give it up, because he still wanted the autonomy to be able to go places, like people do in America. For all of you that live in a suburb, for all of you that live in an urban area that actually is not overcrowded, you know that you can get in your car and you can go somewhere you want. You have the freedom of movement because you can go down, turn the key, and as long as you have the money to fill up the fuel tank, you can go anywhere you want. My father-in-law also used to tell me that cars go in all directions. That was his answer. If we wanted to go somewhere, cars go in all directions. But in New York City, it's such a burden to own a vehicle. It's such a non-American experience that people sit in their cars for hours waiting to make sure that when the one side clears, because they're going to sweep the streets on that side to keep the city from falling into filth and ruin, you can do a U-turn and you flip in and you parallel park and you grab yourself a parking spot, because otherwise you'll not have a place to park. And then they just leave it there. These cars just sit in perpetuity, one side of the street and the other side of the street. Sometimes the only movement they get in a whole week and maybe a month is that there's a U-turn on the potential that they could go somewhere with it, which seems totally nuts. And so that spawns one of the worst, dumbest ideas. I think it's smart on this lady's part, but it's dumb on the purpose of the city, is that you are now going to have dog walkers because you have a pet, but you don't have the ability to go and take it out. So you pay someone to come in and move your pet around for you. Now you can have a car sitter. That's a pretty indicative problem of people who are so out of touch with America that most Americans will never experience this. This lady makes a living sitting in other people's cars and parallel parking them. I'm sure she's great at parking. But what a dumb scenario. New York has this. San Francisco has this. Los Angeles has problems with this, but less so because it's more spread out. San Diego has this. I've seen this. I've gotten tickets for alternate side parking. Listen to this lady go.
People are claiming that women are not good parallel parkers, but I'm incredible.
A few weeks ago, 29-year-old Sydney Charlotte made a career change.
I put good juju out there that there's a parking spot.
And it's taking over the New York City parking system by storm.
Do you live in New York City and need to move your car for street sweeping?
It started with this TikTok video, immediately picking up hundreds of thousands of views.
I'll sit in your car for a fraction of the price of a parking ticket.
As she presented herself as a professional car sitter for hire. One commenter writing, "This is the ultimate side hustle."
I printed out flyers to hand them out to people, but I haven't even needed to do that.
In reality, Sydney moved here from the West Coast a few months after being laid off from her job and picked up on this sort of loophole herself. Now, all throughout the week, New Yorkers are paying Sydney to move their cars and sit in them during allotted street sweeping hours. And in her experience, police officers do not write you a ticket if you're present.
What do you say to the cop? You just smile and wave?
Yeah, he just smiles. He sometimes doesn't even look at you. This morning I was like, good morning. He's like, good morning.
From there, Sydney will just sit in a stranger's car for hours. I thought that sounded boring at first, but then I remembered young millennials have a trick for quietly passing time, even with company.
Never mind.
Speaking of company, less than a month in, Sydney already wants to expand the business.
Oh, too small.
And next, hire more folks to join her army of professional Big Apple automobile occupiers. And so far,
I have more people sending me their resumes and asking if they can work for me than I almost do customers.
and guys,
How ugly is that? What a goofy thing. Yeah, is it savvy? For sure. You've identified a need that people have. I think the problem is the underlying need. And so it made me think about, what about real jobs? What about good jobs that do things that actually benefit human beings, that you feel good about? So I went to the well and I pulled up this story from Mike Rowe, who's talking about a real problem. All that stuff can be solved with AI vehicles at some point in the future. It also could be solved with the fact that you don't live in cities, and cities are basically, what was the purpose of the city in the first place? The entire reason that everybody used to live in the same place is because you needed to go to, I don't know, like a factory or a job, or you go to the financial centers. People telecommute now. It's becoming less and less necessary. I don't know how these cities maintain. At some point, they're going to have to fall under their own weight. So are a lot of the jobs that we were told people were supposed to go get if they wanted to go into inflation-proof or economy-proof changes in the economy. The one thing that hasn't changed is that basic construction of structures and the places where people live, work, and have to go about, and like the underlying pieces of our civilization haven't really changed in quite a while. Mike Rowe's saying, yeah, you could learn to code, but they're probably going to have AI take your job. You could probably learn how to park someone else's car, but that job's going to go away when the self-parking cars just move away from the incoming street sweepers. What won't change right now is like fitting pipes and running electrical lines and doing things with your hands. So maybe our kids all are going to get a different version of what we grew up with. I grew up knowing you had to go to college if you wanted a job. And you could still then and now, probably make more money in a trade. And Mike Rowe continues to talk about that. I think this is worth considering.
We've been telling kids for 15 years to code. Learn to code, we said. Yeah, well, AI is coming for the coders. They're not coming for the welders. They're not coming for the plumbers. They're not coming for the steam fitters or the pipe fitters or the HVAC. They're not coming for the electricians. You know, that Ideas Festival I was telling you about in Aspen, I sat there and listened to Larry Fink say we need 500,000 electricians in the next couple of years. Not hyperbole. This is me being the alarmist again. There's not a week that goes by in my humble little foundation. It's called MicroWorks, shameless plug. We award work ethic scholarships every year, right, to kids who want to learn a skill that's in demand. These are trade school scholarships. Not a week goes by where I don't get a phone call from somebody like the Blue Forge Alliance, who oversees our maritime industrial base. That's 15,000 individual companies who are collectively charged with building and delivering 3 nuclear-powered subs to the Navy every year for 10 years, right? 2 Virginia, 1 Columbia class. Mind-bogglingly complicated. This guy calls and says, we're having a hell of a time finding tradespeople. Can you help? I said, I don't know, man. It's pretty skinny out there. How many do you need? He says 140,000. 140,000. Now, granted, over 7 years, but they need 80, 90,000 right now. These are our submarines, folks, right? Things go hypersonic, little sideways with China, Taiwan, whatever. Our aircraft carriers are no longer the point of the spear. They're vulnerable. Our submarines matter. And these guys have a pinch point because they can't find welders and electricians to get them built.
It's just an interesting thing to consider, that the strength of America has always been the workforce and the ability to adapt to what it was. We went into a service-based economy, and I think we're going to eventually see a swing back because all things change. And you're going to find that the people that can work on robots and AI and the things that can go and keep these things going along, you're going to need manufacturers. You can automate a lot of things, but someone's got to make sure that those machines get built. You're not going to have machines building machines, at least not in the very near future. So instead of building railways to nowhere that don't get needed, there are things like defense projects that could be involved in. And our federal government always is a bad steward of our money. It's yet another reason why real conservatism has never been tried. Just like real communism has never been tried. I keep seeing this stuff, and it makes me wonder. In the meantime, instead of focusing on like infrastructure, which the Biden administration came in and tried to move us on to green stuff and a bunch of other nonsense, instead of focusing on projects that actually matter a lot and could insulate, look, at the end of the day, my 401k, I just looked at it this morning. As of right now, even though it was down over a couple days over this week, it's still up like 12+% on the year. So I'm not losing. Again, I'm greedy. I got what I wanted. My friends are not in jail. I got to sit and have a really nice conversation with Enrique Tarrio the other day. That's pretty cool because he's not serving 22 years. All those things are great. But there are things that Trump kind of promised, like, what did he promise? A golden era? You can't do that if your government is lying to people and people don't believe that you're even in it for the right reasons. It doesn't mean that he's not. It just means that messaging over the last, let's call it a week and a half, the reason why I can show you a MAGA hat on fire and everybody knows what I'm talking about is because you don't go out there and tell your supporters that they're weaklings and they're stupid. There's a really, really solid piece of analysis done over at CNN, which is really awkward to say because I dislike CNN generally. But this does tell you something. Because I monitor, let's call it the apex peak of political nerds every single day on social media. Who are those people? Maybe they're you. They're definitely me right now, and I don't care to be in that group, but here I am. People that know every single bad name and good name in politics are pretty nerdy. They're not the way that many people in my generation grew up, and it's still not the way that a lot of people that I know operate. If I go out and drop the name of a congressman, if I say, hey, Joni Ernst is facing some fundraising problems. She only raised $722,000 last quarter. That's the lowest she's raised since she's been in the Senate. People are like, who the hell's Joni Ernst? What are you talking about? $722,000 sounds like a lot. Those are all true things. These are things I saw this morning as I was reading through for preparing today's show. They don't know who that is. They don't know who John Cornyn is and that he's also having the same thing. There's a whole article that was written about their fundraising difficulties and they're facing big challenges in the GOP. So you're a politics nerd if you know that. Even if you just know your own senators, that puts you closer to a politics nerd than most people because they don't know who represents them, because they don't care. They have their nose down to the grindstone and they're trying to build a railroad to nowhere or park in somebody else's car or whatever the hell they're doing. But when the people that are most upset with the current existing president, the political nerds, there is a real world translation of I'm upset with this guy. They're going to go out and tell some people. They're going to go to the playground where their kids are playing. They're going to go to work and they're going to be getting out of their car and they're going to be dropping that on folks. Did you see what happened? No, I don't pay attention. They actually are the information source, secondhand, third hand, for a lot of people. And by the way, y'all have noticed how bad that telephone game is. Read the story, read the headline and got an emotional reaction, went and told somebody else about what it. So you're going to get like a bunch of downstream people that are misinformed or underinformed about God knows what, including, what Donald Trump did and didn't say. We've got his message right here. I actually took a quick scroll of it yesterday during the program because I grabbed it in real time. I'm going to read some more of it. But I'll tell you this analysis from CNN is actually pretty telling about why there is a problem this week for folks that are on the right. And that includes the influencer types. It includes the people that are sort of like, I'll call it the political nerd types, myself included. So you're not alone if you are in it. QAnon, we'll talk about that in a second since that's offensive to some people, shows the staying power of Epstein theories. Trump should know they won't go away. In a Saturday afternoon, October 20th, in a hotel room just outside of Phoenix, Arizona, the mood was buoyant. A man wearing an unusual and elaborate headpiece scoffed and grunted as I entered the room. It was the height of the COVID-19 pandemic. There were about 60 or so people who gathered them. Very few were wearing face masks. Some in the room didn't even believe that COVID was real. The crowd cheered as they watched a clip of Donald Trump play on the television in front of them. The video was 48 hours earlier when Trump had been asked by Savannah Guthrie if he would disavow QAnon, and he would not. He said he knew nothing about QAnon, and they were very much against pedophilia, and he agreed with that sentiment. So they go on, and they write a whole thing about Q and the Anons, and I know they're not the same thing, but let's just go with what the mainstream media has reported they are. So you have a QAnon conference or a QCon, and people got together with the belief that secretly there are some white hats, which are the good guys inside the federal government that are out there trying to run it. There's a continuity of government program that secretly runs the government, and everything we see is a show to try to expose the black hats and the bad guys that are really out there trying to screw with us. And so there's this good versus evil battle. This is a religious thing, folks. At the end of the day, this is good versus evil, and they've just played it out, and they have a fantasy about it happening in the government. There's no Q. There's no secret government source. There's no, like, Donald Trump was always in power, because if you believe in any of these things, and you go to follow them down, you have to believe that Donald Trump was in charge while Biden was in charge, and that Biden was somehow in on it. So you can't really be mad about the Biden administration. You can't be mad about any of the things they did, because it was all Donald Trump's idea. And when you start doing this, you become this mental pretzel of crazy. But a lot of people do believe it. To the point where people have been telling me, and I've listened to a few dozen hours of Twitter Spaces, which is, again, peak political nerds. I've listened to hours of people discuss how the reason Donald Trump is behaving the way he is not because he has bad messaging and he's saying something that might be very true, but is just not being communicated well. No, the reason is because Donald Trump is secretly drawing the Democrats out in order to get them to expose themselves. He's saying there's no Epstein files, so that they demand the Epstein files so that when his government, which is in control of the executive and all the executive agencies, at least ostensibly, nominally they're in charge, they're going to get all the members of Congress united behind this idea that we need to release this stuff, and then they're going to release it all, and then it's going to put the United States in chaos, but it's your own fault because it's all out there. And as Steve Friend said the other day, and that's the reason why we have to protect pedophiles. That assumes that there's actually anything there. Again, the spectrum is there's a bunch of pedophiles and the government's covering for them, all the way to there's nothing there and they've been lying to you for a little bit. And they overhyped what they didn't have. And when they got in, you find out that it wasn't there. I've got the videos of Donald Trump. He was very soft on this and has been throughout the campaign and through his term. The people that were really hard and saying, yeah, this is there and we got to go get it, the Patel types, the Bongino types, they were out there hyping this thing. But you'll notice that since they've been in their governmental position, since they've been read in, they're really, really light on this. They looked like men who were under dramatic pressure to not release the secret because it was going to embarrass them. Watch their Maria Bartiromo or the video interview they did. Watch the Hannity stuff. They did everything they could to not address this. The only person that's been really out there hyping it has been Pam Bondi. And she, curiously, was not a signatory to the memo that went out. Now, obviously, no one signed it, but we heard from the Deputy Attorney General that the people that put out the memo that closed the Epstein once and for all was the Deputy Attorney General, the FBI Director, and the Deputy Director of the FBI. No Pam Bondi mentioned. So it should be reasonable that if you do not tell people straightforward and say it in very clear manners and messages, that you're going to be dealing with fallout. There will be fallout because you have not been transparent. And the one thing that this administration campaigned on, that they said they were going to do, and the thing that they've even messaged, even through Bindergate, Epstein, phase 1 of 1, remember that silly thing? All of that was really bad messaging. Hence yesterday's title that we have a PR issue as much as anything else. There is, in fact, very little public evidence. There's a ton of smoke, but no fire. And as far as I can tell, all of the talk has come from people who are drumming it up, and they're Trump surrogates. So he is responsible for what his son says and people in his administration say before and after the election. But you can't just say you're a bunch of weaklings and this is the Epstein hoax and move on without being transparent. People don't like that. They feel like they're being lied to. And the reason why is for years, they have been set up to believe that the government is lying to them. So if you want to be different, you have to give more information. You can't wink and nod that there might be someone greater in charge. There is, by the way, spoiler alert, there is someone greater in charge of the United States federal government and everything else you see. But if you're a Christian, you know that it's not some government insider who has a Q clearance. It's the three persons of the Holy Trinity that run things. And that doesn't mean that there's going to be justice. All of you who've been sitting there waiting on this justice that's supposed to come down, it's going to rain down like fire. It's not going to happen that way. We don't get justice on earth. I was so pleased to see someone say this on X yesterday. I listened to a podcast and someone indicated that, yeah, we're going to be redeemed, but it's not going to be here. We're not going to get the real justice we want. I'm being greedy because I want more. That doesn't mean that there shouldn't be better messaging. If you're going to go out there and say things, obviously, that you can substantiate, then do it. And there's an easy way to do it. It's a press conference. It involves the top 2 people at DOJ, the top 2 people at the FBI, a couple of people from the New York field office, the evidence technician who evaluated what came in from all the places, and answer the questions as best you can. Put the Office of General Counsel nearby. Let somebody there who can referee what's in and out of bounds or whether or not it's a national security concern, and be as open and honest as you can and let it lay out there and let people decide whether or not they're going to deal with it. Oh my God, I got to put this on the screen right now. So for those of you that are in the chat that are telling me that Q is real, please, you can't believe in things that don't exist. You have to have evidence. There's no evidence of this nonsense. To believe in it because you want to believe in it is a faith thing. And that's why you end up with stuff like this. It is hard to dissuade people because, as we've said here on the program a number of times, and I'd like you to consider it, after the COVID nonsense that went on. And there was obviously a bunch of nonsense where people said trust in these institutions, despite the fact that they do not actually do honest things. People chose one of 2 routes. And those routes are very obvious. And the Q people fit into one of these categories. One route was, I don't believe anything anyone tells me. I want to see evidence and I'm going to evaluate it for myself. That's the skeptic crowd. Welcome to my little camp. And we're all in there, if we can be. That's where you ought to be. But the alternative is whatever I believe is as good as anything else. And I've got friends in that camp too, and they're not bad people. You're not a bad person for believing that. I'm just telling you, I think you're wrong because what you've decided is that you can determine what's real and not real simply because what everyone else said was a lie at some point in time. It's not a great way to come out. That's not what the evidence actually should be teaching you. Tom Fitton is pretty reasonable. He's seen a lot of nonsense in government. Enjoy this. He's saying you can't just flip. You can't just tell people to move on. That doesn't work. He's right.
We're all supposed to just move along, right? You know, someone gets nearly assassinated, Secret Service head resigns, move along. Trump gets prosecuted illicitly, move along. The election gets rigged through this primary coup, move along. I don't want to move along, and the American people don't want to move along. We're all supposed to just move along, right?
You can't just tell people to move along. You have to give them a reason to move along. People will act rationally when you give them information and evidence to play with. For those of you in the chat asking about Santa Claus and the Tooth Fairy and so on and so forth, exactly. There's evidence that there's an indication that they could be real. Cookies are gone. Money is left under the pillow. Right? There are things that happen. But then you think, well, has anyone ever proved that it's real? Is it circumstantial only? It's problematic. The Trump administration is in a position where they could actually reveal. They could lay whatever cards they have that they're able to do. And there are some cards that probably should be laid on the table to try to dissuade this. What you don't want to do is go out there and call your supporters foolish or stupid. You don't want to call them weaklings. That is not a great look. That is not a fantastic move. Here's Matt Walsh talking about it. Before we do Matt Walsh, let's talk about the folks over at Patriot Protect. You want to worry about scams? Our government's scamming you. They're also losing your information. There may be a good way that you can protect yourself about it. This is the one that we use, patriot-protect.com/Kyle. It's a couple bucks a month. Use my name as a promo code. You'll save 15% on the annual subscription. It's like fire and forget. You basically type your information in. It's a little bit of work up front. It's less than 15 minutes. It might be less than 10 minutes, depending on how many addresses you have. You give them a little bit of your stuff. They go looking for it on the data broker websites, and they get rid of it. That's the goal. There's like 100 plus data broker websites that scrape through and they try to find all the leaks and hacks and so on and so forth. They want to make sure that you're not out there, so you're not an easy victim for scammers, so you're not getting that phone call from India telling them they know all this stuff, pretending to be your bank, pretending to be anything else. This is good for seniors. This is good for anybody who's busy and doesn't pay attention and picks up phone calls and might talk to someone that sounds legit. If you want to be out of the pile of people that are being targeted, patriot-protect.com/Kyle. They've also got a system called the Blackout service that goes and scans the dark web to find out if your information has been compromised. And if it has been, then they can let you know about it. That's what they do. And then you can go out there and try to change passwords and logins and so on and so forth, so that someone's not going to go out there and empty your bank account. It's a lot harder to have a lot of things go on in your life when your bank account's being emptied. It's hard enough out there. Things are expensive enough. Right? You don't need anybody out there making it worse on you. Again, patriot-protect.com/Kyle. Go look at the link in the show description. If you don't use them, use somebody, but that's the one we use in our house, and we appreciate them being one of our sponsors. Let's do a quick little clip from Matt Walsh. I think this sums up some of it. People have been consistent. You have to give people a reason to move on. You have to let them know that there's a reason, and you got to give them some evidence they can cling on to. Again, this is as likely as not bad, terrible messaging. Own it instead of insulting. Or you're going to continue to have people that do this. And Matt Walsh being a good actor or a bad actor, I don't know where he sits on this. I just know that this is not unreasonable for people that have been hyped up. And I'm going to show you the hype. The hype has been ongoing.
Many of us were not saying anything different from what we've been saying for years about Epstein. Okay. And also what Trump has been saying for years about it. Now Trump has decided all of a sudden that the issue doesn't matter. It's boring. And anyone who talks about it is a weakling and not one of his supporters. He decided that in the last 2 weeks. He never said that before. So the idea that we as conservatives are obligated to just adopt that perspective out of the blue is madness. It's also not possible, by the way. Even if I wanted to just decide that I don't care about this anymore, it doesn't work that way. I can't. I can't just, you can't say to me, well, you shouldn't care about this. Okay, well, then I don't. Well, never mind. Even if I wanted to obey that directive, I just can't. I care about the issue. I've cared about it for the last 5-6 years. I've cared about it the whole time. I still do. But I'm not interested in obeying that directive because I'm an American.
That's the key point. This is a longer video. You guys can go out and find it yourself if you want to watch Matt Walsh talk about it. The issue is you don't get to tell people. You can't command your base to move on, and it's not effective. You can't tell people not to trust their eyes without evidence, that the world is full of fake media and a bunch of liars, which I think is very true. I think you can read the media every single day and see what the mainstream is doing and know that there's dishonesty. You don't get to just say, I, by fiat, now declare this. This is the thing I actually missed yesterday when I was reading this to you all. He said, I've had more success in 6 months than perhaps any president in our country's history. That's a Trump thing. Trump is always overhyping. It's dangerous to overhype and underdeliver, but, that's his take. Fine. He said all these people want to talk about with strong prodding by the fake news and the success-starved Dems is the Jeffrey Epstein hoax. That is not true. That's where you start feeling gaslit. Saying that the fake news is the one running this. They are, but not because his people didn't go out there and push us in the beginning. He said, let the weaklings continue forward and do the Democrats' work. Gosh almighty. Don't even think about talking about our incredible and unprecedented success because I don't want their support anymore. That is not a good look. That's my take. You can agree with it. You can disagree with it. I'm fine with that. I had this discussion last night with some folks. It's like, in my lifetime, you're allowed to disagree with your friends. I have friends that I don't agree with almost anything about. And we're still close because I think they're good people. We just see the information and we interpret it differently based on our life experience. And I didn't know this, but this was pointed out to me yesterday, and it is actually very funny. The United States has a chance to do something it hasn't done, that should have been done decades ago. Don't be weak. Don't be stupid. Don't be a panickin'. Be strong, courageous, patient, and the greatness will result. That was Donald Trump on April 7th. I didn't realize that panickin' is a Donald Trump term. I knew that it came out of MAGA people. I didn't realize that Trump was the originator of it. It's a dumb term, panickin'. Don't make slurs and things. And I just found it really obnoxious when people go, oh, you're panicking. I'm like, where did this come from? What dumb source did it come from? And it came from Donald Trump himself. Don't insulting your base and trying to prod people along. Maybe that's a New Yorker thing, but New York is not America, as we established earlier. Being a panickin'. Call me anything you want. How about this? Give evidence for me to believe your position. I already know the mainstream media is full of crap. I know that it's full of liars. I know it's full of people that are not honest and are so narcissistic that they think that they should be believed simply because they say it. They said it. How dare you not believe them? They've told you this in countless episodes. We've had so many different montages of the mainstream media saying they don't like people who do their own research. I only want to talk to people that do their own research. I just may not agree with their findings, and I may not agree with their sourcing. That's what honest people do. Here's a really fun thing from Scott MacFarlane, who I think might be one of the softest looking. He looks like a cartoon of a soft human being. And he's talking about the Butler assassination, which should have been all over the news for the last couple of days. We are what now, 4 days away from the anniversary, like 4 days out from the anniversary of America and the world almost changing for like forever. We haven't had someone of Donald Trump's profile shot at and nearly successfully assassinated in a generation, at the very minimum. It should have really, really rocked people to come up on the 1 year of it, and that should have been the only thing talked about. Instead, what was being talked about was Epstein, because we had an attorney general who said a bunch of dumb things out loud. I think she said very dumb things. I think whether it was her decision or someone else's, whether someone was whispering in her ear from their briefers inside her administrative sort of groups there that give her intel, or whether it was her own bad idea, I don't know. And neither do you, probably. But it seemed like a really, really bad thing to take the spotlight to Jeffrey Epstein when we should have been talking about something really atrocious. Listen to this man make it about himself. Can you imagine the degree of narcissism? This is why people don't trust the media, and this is why you can't just come out and tell us to do something. Because we did get that lesson. But that lesson was also that we just don't blindly trust anybody, including the people that we like. That should have been the message. Listen to Scott MacFarlane here tell me that he was about to get ripped apart by the crowd at Butler. Give me a flipping break.
For those of us there, it was such a horror because you saw an emerging America. And it wasn't the shooting, Chuck. I got diagnosed with PTSD within 48 hours. I got put on trauma leave, not because I think of the shooting, but because you saw it in the eyes, the reaction of the people. They were coming for us. If he didn't jump up with his fist, they were going to come kill us.
I know.
What a pussy. That's the dumbest thing I've ever heard. If you didn't see Donald Trump get up, if he was actually killed, he thinks that people would not have been in mourning and not have been shocked. They would have gone and killed the media. I mean, maybe later, because I think this country would have ripped itself apart over it, but they weren't going to go and kill that clown in his white dress shirt and his cuffs and his he has like extra long skinny arms. I always noticed that too. Just the epitome of beta weakness. Of course, someone else got shot and you made it about you. Insane. Truly insane. Really hard to believe. But we've been warned about these people for a long time. And here's something that's really dangerous. Our culture has gone, we talked about illusory truth the other day. The idea that if something is repeated enough times, sometimes you forget the context and you just believe the message, right? So the context may have been, I am lampooning you. I am making fun of you. I am showing that this is not a way to be. This is a dumb way to operate. But all we did is just know that I've seen that before at some point. You forget the context. I found this video from In Living Color. This is Scott MacFarlane. It's not really Scott MacFarlane. It's actually Jim Carrey, who used to be hilarious, and I think he's gone back to being funny again. So that's cool. This is 1990. So let's do the math on that. 35 years ago. You roll back 35 years ago. What did regular people make fun of? They made fun of soy, environmental weirdos, the real version of panicans, the people that thought that there was a climate change. This was called environmental man, the mental keyed in on because of the mental illness it would take to go out and do this. And this is lampooned. And at some point, this is now normal. This is actually Scott MacFarlane. This is who he is. Effeminate, limp-wristed, weak, like pseudo-hippie types. They used to be made fun of. They now are people that take themselves seriously. Watch this clip. This is a comedy. This is making fun of this. And you have met this person. You might live next to this person.
Listen up, people. I am here and I want to help. This is our planet. Can I get a hurrah? What, am I invisible? Doesn't anybody care? Listen to me!
I want one with relish.
And I want mine with mustard.
I want you to stop this insanity. What do you think you're doing?
I'm trying to make a living here.
And the planet is dying. Listen, I can't get a pulse.
What the hell are you talking about?
There are 50,000 hot dog cows in Kansas alone.
So?
So, when those cows break wind, not only is it stinky, but it's cutting a hole in the ozone. Think of those hot dogs as 1 cubic foot of cow gas. Bon appetit. That's it. See? We can make a difference. Oh, thank you, you're here. I'm trying to teach these people how to embrace the planet, and they're not listening. It's insanity. I swear, it just makes me crazy. I wish somebody would just reach out and do something. I'm running out of breath.
Listen, I don't want any trouble. So why don't you just move along?
Does somebody have a camcorder? Don't touch me.
How close to reality is that? Like, there are actual people that walk around like that every single day now. In fact, it's the exact same energy as this guy.
For those of us there, it was such a horror because you saw an emerging America.
That emerging America was one that eats meat and is scary and likes Donald Trump and wants some guy. Look, and he's so mean and they were going to come and kill us if someone killed him. How crazy is that? He's Jim Carrey from 35 years ago in a comedy skit, and he does the news. So that's why people don't believe the news. That's why you can't just go out and demand that people move on and expect that they're going to go do it. And the fact of the matter is Donald Trump did feed some of this stuff, not nearly as much as the people around him. So the people around him needed to step up and do the right thing. And like I said, this is a messaging problem and it's easily fixed. It's just not getting fixed. So you're not going to get this move along thing. You can't do it by this. Here's a great headline. And I don't think these people have honest intent. In fact, I'll show you CNN. They're loving this. They love it. But that doesn't mean it's not a problem. You can come in from one side, come in from the other side, want the same thing. Again, you can have a problem with a funding bill in the government. This is the Thomas Massie position, right? Thomas Massie says, you're funding too many things. There's too much money there. You're going to increase the national debt. I'm not going to vote for this program, even though Republicans do. Democrats can say, I'm not going to vote for this funding program either. It doesn't give enough money. It doesn't increase the deficit by enough. It doesn't add enough to our national budget, our national debt. We don't have enough government. One person says it doesn't cut enough government. The other one says it doesn't add enough government. They both can say the same thing, no on this bill. They can come at it from completely different reasons and have an agreement. To smear them all the same is doing this. This is what Donald Trump said. This is the CBS coverage of it. Again, they love it. This is self-inflicted. Trump calls the Epstein controversy a hoax and bullshit, denounces the weaklings in the GOP. That's not right. They're just doing what they're trained to do. That's what people should be doing. They should be skeptics. Present some evidence. And it shouldn't be everybody's name. You shouldn't go out there and smear people without an indictment or an allegation or information they committed a federal crime. Explain why there is none after people said it. And that's not proving a negative. You have to go through, this is the process. Most people have no idea what a criminal investigation is outside of TV. So help that be done. It can be done. Here's CNN. Again, they're loving it. You can see the smiles on all the propaganda people. The same guy that was crying when Donald Trump was elected in 2016 is laughing. It's Van Jones. The guy's a walking emotion. Here he is. He wants to do battle with Scott Jennings. Scott Jennings is trying to hold like reasonable ground. But this is self-inflicted.
I want to hear what you have to say.
Yes.
I yield to Scott.
I yield to my good friend Scott Jennings.
And this disingenuousness is what you need to know about the Democrats right now. The party's in the ditch.
It's our fault.
Yeah.
We have a
because you have Democrats.
Because
you got Democrats.
Kids, if you're interested in politics, watch this pivot.
You've got Democrats saying, we must release the files. Joe Biden had the files for 4 years. Not a single Democrat cared. And if Donald Trump were
He
in
didn't
it.
campaign on releasing the files.
And if Donald Trump.
Trump did.
But these Democrats are acting like it's a national emergency, and they did nothing about it. If Donald Trump were in there, don't you think Joe Biden would have put. They had law enforcement chasing them all
I
over
think we
creation.
can all acknowledge.
All right. He's right. Donald Trump didn't actually campaign on it per se. He was soft on it each time. Here's a couple of little examples. We did a Lex Friedman one, which I'll play again, but this is another one where he's sitting down, talking to Fox. He's like, he's strong on JFK. He's strong on MLK. He's not real great about the Epstein thing. It's the people that are around him that really created this problem.
Americans have lost a lot of trust in institutions, and I think there's been a lot of discussion, especially online and especially with young people. How do we rebuild that trust in institutions? The CIA, the FBI, all those institutions.
You're right.
Some people think that one way to build trust is to declassify things that everyone's talking about. I know you talked earlier about, I don't want to be a conspiracy theorist. So if you were president, would you declassify, you can answer yes or no to these. Would you declassify the 9/11 files?
Yeah.
Would you declassify JFK files?
Yeah. I did a lot of it.
Would you declassify the Epstein files?
Yeah, I would.
Yeah, but he's not nearly as aggressive about it. And here's the same thing. He did the same thing with Lex Friedman. He talked about it. Again, there's a big difference between the folks that were in there, that were campaigning as surrogates, and the way that Donald Trump talked about it. He actually goes on in that clip longer. And I don't know why I don't have the longer version of it. But he goes on and says, there's some people that are in there and they're smeared and they're implicated and it's not really fair. And he dances with it. He has a lot more of a caveat that goes along with that. Yes for Epstein. Yes for JFK. Yes for the 9/11 report. And by the way, Kash Patel, who's now in charge of the FBI, was the one who was out there pushing this. We have too much classification by 50%. We could declassify a bunch of stuff. His FBI, we're going to call it his, even though I don't think that's fair because he doesn't run it in any meaningful way. The same people are still in the administration, but the FBI is still resisting FOIAs and they're still out there pushing bad information out and not letting people have access to stuff that they should. They were fighting Steve Friend about his freaking training records. He's a former FBI agent who wants to know about his training records. And they said, sorry, it's going to take us like 6 years, 5.5 years to get it to you. That's crap. This is the Lex Friedman clip. Again, he's got a much more nuanced take. And then I'm going to show you the alternative, which is people dancing around on the stage, just playing this up.
But a lot of big people went to that island. But fortunately, I was not one of them.
It's just very strange for a lot of people that the list of clients that went to the island has not been made public.
Yeah, it's very interesting, isn't it? Probably will be, by the way. Probably.
So if you're able to, you'll be...
Yeah, I'd certainly take a look at it. Now, Kennedy's interesting because it's so many years ago. They do that for danger, too, because, endangers certain people, et cetera, et cetera. So Kennedy is very different from the Epstein thing. But, yeah, I'd be inclined to do the Epstein. I'd have no problem with it.
That's not campaigning on it. Like, this is the reason you should vote for me. It's like, you ask me a question, I'm kind of open to it. It's different. Now, Don Jr. did campaign on that. Bongino, I think he campaigned on behalf of Trump, whether you like it or not. Like, he was saying things that he actually sent me a text message at one point in time, said we need to come together and just all agree that we have to get this done for our children. Like, we need to support the movement. Wrong guy. I asked him what his plan was, by the way. I got no information back, so I don't know what the plan was. But, they went out there and they ran this. This is at an event. This is hyping people up. This is why people are locked in a mindset.
How is it that my father can be convicted of 34 crimes, but no one on Epstein's list has even been brought to light? I'm trying to figure out how that's possible, right, folks? It's almost like they're trying to protect those pedophiles for some reason. I can't imagine why, right?
Why is the FBI protecting the greatest pederast, the largest scale pederast in human history?
Simple, because of who's on that list.
Everybody in politics has a vice that's much worse than alcoholism, is the way that I put it. But we
release the list.
Seriously, we need to release the Epstein list. That is an important thing.
The DOJ may be releasing the list of Jeffrey Epstein's clients. Will that really happen?
It's sitting on my desk right now to review. That's been a directive by President Trump.
In this case, in Epstein's case, it is incredibly disturbing. We have flight logs, we have information, names that will come out.
I'm not ever going to let this story go because of what I heard from a source about Bill Clinton on a plane with Jeffrey Epstein. I'm not letting it go ever. Ever.
If you're out there saying that you have secret knowledge of this stuff, that you've reviewed something, especially now that you're in a position of government, again, look at the people that have not been talking about it since they've been in government. Look at the people that did. Look at the people that kind of have that oh shit face when they went out and did Fox. And that's Dan and Cash. They look like they were sitting on a chair full of like thumbtacks because they knew that this was going to be poorly received because they're in media and they know it's going to destroy credibility because they talked about it a lot. All of those people that were talking about it during the campaign were kind of doing this throwaway trope. There's pedophiles. We got to expose them. Like, which ones? Who are they? Have you seen anything that indicates you have that evidence? It sounds like they probably didn't have it. So it's probably closer to the right side of the spectrum, this hand over here that I was talking about when you've got the two possibilities. Are they covering for them or is there nothing there, but they've talked about it? The people that screwed up this messaging, it's really clear, is Pam Bondi, but she's covered. Trump said she's good. You got a messaging problem, and it's a real problem. You can't move on from that. It won't go away.
The left has been trying to shove Marxism, socialism, and communism down the throats of the American people.
Wait, what was that? That's the real message that was supposed to get out. That's the thing that should have been hammered home on this. What you got is a distraction. That's Stephen Miller. Stephen Miller's really bright. He's a pit bull. He's almost always someone that I agree with when he says stuff. He honed in on what the actual game is. This is clearly distractionary, so I understand the frustration that Trump has. But it's self-inflicted. He's in a hole, and he's digging it deeper by saying things like you're weaklings for not agreeing. The messaging that Stephen Miller had, which we played you earlier, and I'm going to play it again before we close out here, so much better. So much more accurate. It's the same as the effeminate, limp-wristed guy that was lampooned by Jim Carrey 35 years ago and is now the current host of Take Your Pick on CNN or CBS or whatever else. You still have to fix the problem, which is messaging, and get back to this messaging, which people can generally understand. They tried to move a bunch of people into this country. They've changed what this country is about. This is where, what is he? He's the chief of staff for policy. The messaging lacks on some of the other ends, particularly the DOJ side.
The left has been trying to shove Marxism, socialism, and communism down the throats of the American people for generations now. They ultimately were not able to do this during the Cold War because the middle class revolted against communism and Marxism and social engineering. The left shifted their tactics. The Democratic Party shifted their tactics to use migration as a weapon to break down the middle class and to gain political power and control in this country. They used migration to destroy our public education system, to destroy our healthcare system, to destroy wages and working conditions for the middle class of this country, and in effect, to destroy social and community cohesion.
All of that's true. And even some people that are like old school libs get it because in theory, what they care about or what they say they care about are regular people, the people that are doing those blue collar jobs that should be doing something like Mike Rowe was talking about. Bill Maher gets it. No big lover of Bill Maher. He said a lot of dumb things. He was the first to jump on saying that there were problems and he wants to go out there and he's happy to go out there and punch at Donald Trump, which is fine. I think that's his right. I don't think he's always factually correct, but it's always interesting when you get somebody from the hard left that comes up and tries to say it. And now he looks like a moderate because that's how far left our country has moved. We've gone from making fun of the guy that's upset about hot dogs to having that guy read the news every night and say that someone else getting shot is about them being torn apart, possibly because he fantasized about it and now he has PTSD. Bill Maher being the sensible one in this country is kind of a scary thing because it tells you how far left we've gone. I never particularly found him funny. He's like he's got that New York wit. He probably would pay someone to move his car from one side of the street to the other.
But, I mean,
part of this is a backlash to how badly Biden handled the immigration situation. It can't just be like come one, come all, which
Dude,
it
there's
was.
There's plenty of room here, and we need
room.
There's plenty of room in America. Come on, there's not a lack of room in America.
But it's never about room. It's about resources and about like having countries have to have a border. It just can't be. I mean, they've done surveys and something like 200 million people around the world, when asked, would you come to America if you could? Yes, I would. Why wouldn't they? Lots of countries, are shitholes.
Right.
And they would love to be here. You can't
I'm not right. No, right. The places aren't shitholes, but...
Well, they are. I mean, that's why they want to come.
And it's usually because of America, what America's done.
Nobody wants to listen to these people because they lie. If the faces that you hear are out there lying to you, then you have to assume that you have to bring facts if you want to cut through the noise. You've got to bring information that's honest. You have to be transparent. You can't just say transparency is things we like, as Steve Friend brought up on last Friday. Even Bill Maher's wrong. He was like, they tried to bring all these people in. Biden did a bad job on immigration. No, Biden did the exact job that was wanted on immigration. They brought people in on purpose. That was by design. If you believe that, if you believe you are being lied to by your last administration and your current administration tells you what to believe, they can't get away with it by fiat. That's the thing that Matt Walsh was saying. Essentially, if you want to deal with Americans as citizens, you got to give them information because you believe that they're entitled to the information. You can't just say move on. You can't just call them a panickin. You can't just make a post and say that you're now a weakling and it's a hoax because I said it is. You got to do better. As much as anything else, the odds are this is a massive messaging problem, but it is a problem, and it's not going to go away with a true social post. Certainly not for the political nerd class. The average person out there probably walking around still has no idea. I'm going to tell you one more thing that bothers me. It's the normalization of something, and this, I think, all plays in to this movement in this country for the last 35, 40 years. It's basically the entirety of my life. We've watched this shift that has been very quick and very dramatic. And it does matter. And every single inch that is gained is never come back. You know, Trump is supposed to be doing a U-turn on things. And in reality, he's a speed bump. He's a brake. He's not saving America. He's delaying what has been happening. And so if he wants to do the quote unquote save, he's got to do a lot more than just executive orders. And that's not happening. And I'm not confident that he's even the guy to do it because he's not a king. We don't elect a king. Let me throw this up on the screen here. This bothers me in a lot of ways. This is also very close to me geographically. Chip Gaines, that's Joanna Gaines. This is the fixer-upper couple who seem very likable. And I like the idea that they've got a bunch of kids and they're very successful. They're an American success story. The one problem is when people become victims of their own success because they keep chasing more and more of it. This is a story that came out of NBC. Always interesting. Didn't we play a clip the other day from the Nick Freitas podcast where he's talking about the woman makes the observation that leftists cite the Constitution the same way that atheists cite the Bible? I got that vibe from this story. Chip Gaines defends the decision to include a gay couple on Back to the Frontier, which is a show that they just created. They're conservative Christians, or other conservative Christians rather, have criticized the inclusion of a same-sex couple whose names are Jason Hanna and Joe Riggs and their twin sons. Always sons, isn't it? The TV personality Chip Gaines said that he was including them because they are doing this TV program about giving up technology and trying to live as homesteaders did in the 1800s. They're doing so on camera. So in and of itself, it's already theatrical. This is already made up. This is not real. And obviously, you didn't have gay couples living together with twin sons that they somehow adopted. That didn't happen in the 1800s. So what is the reason for it? The reason apparently, and very explicitly, is to normalize this sort of idea. That normalization is exactly why our culture has gone the way that it has. At the end of the day, I don't care if you're gay. That actually has no effect on me. It doesn't matter at all. That's your business. That's your problem if you believe in Christianity, that you've got to deal with that. We all have our own sins. If that's yours to burden, we all have our own problems to bear. What I do have a problem with, which is the reason that Western society exists, in my humble opinion, is that we're supposed to protect children. It's the reason why people are outraged about Epstein. Children not being protected is a fundamental affront to the American understanding of it, the Western understanding, that our society exists to protect women and children, which I always describe as being the future and the potential future. Children being the future, women representing potential future. If you are not going to protect them, we got a problem. we have an American problem. It's been going on. And to have two people that are outwardly Christian, that appear to live very much in a sort of conservative manner, they're business owners, they have like 5 kids at least, maybe they have more. You guys will have to tell me. I'm not the biggest follower of what their family is about, but I know they have a number of children. And then to go out and try to use Bible verses to justify this. Remember very clearly that when tempting Christ, the devil cites scripture. I'm very wary of people that use scripture and they do it to justify things that are not good. Homosexuality, that's your business. I'm kind of libertarian in that way. Again, I don't want to be the first one to throw a stone, which is, of course, mentioned. But I do care about kids because kids do not get a say in that. And that is the reason why our society has to be the way it is. It has to be set up to protect children. And in the same way that the effeminate sounding voice that you heard from the Jim Carrey was making fun of it, and now it's actually the person that presents the news, this is the same kind of thing. This is not a camel's nose over the tent. This is not new. This has been moving forward for quite a while. I have a big problem with it. And I definitely don't like it when a couple that represents theoretically conservative values and influences a lot of like women who sit and stare at their phone all day long and think, well, if Joanna Gaines thinks it's okay because love is love and all the other things that we hear about, you're actually advocating on behalf of a position that's not good. So I don't know what to do about it. I just know that it's a problem. I know that my wife and I have discussed it a few times. And if you guys are not aware of it, Chip Gaines, who, you know, he's one of those trades guys. He's like a swing the hammer, build a business, make things with his hands. Real simple. He says, well, I appreciate sincerely if you admire and appreciate us so much. Is there any chance there's more to this? Christians, they certainly have come out in full force as if they do not know that we are supposed to judge not and love one another. It's actually not that difficult. It turns out supporting not gay rights, not the right to exist, but the right to have children when you can't biologically create children. Iffy, real iffy. It's a dangerous sort of slippery slope. We've already seen where that's gone. I don't think there is such a thing as gay marriage, but I don't actually think that there should be such a thing as the government being involved in marriage at all. Call me crazy. One last little piece of news that all of you guys will go, this will be chalked up as a win. I'm not real confident it is. I want to read more and understand more. Simply being excited about cheering hiring and firing of people based on their name or like what you think they did or what you believe they did. Most of you have no idea what this woman's career is, myself included. Honestly, I don't care what a line prosecutor like Maureen Comey has done, even if she's touched high profile cases. It's the nature of where she worked. But the news reports, so we'll say it here just because a lot of people are probably either looking for news here or they haven't heard it before. Maureen Comey, who is Jim Comey's daughter, so former FBI director, my former boss back in the day, the guy who handed me my credentials, his daughter has been fired. She was the prosecutor in the Sean Combs case, in the Ghislaine Maxwell case, and a bunch of others. I assure you, if she is a federal prosecutor, those were not the only ones she was touching. She's touched a lot, but that's what people know because people only know the headlines. Justice Department Wednesday fired Maureen Comey from the Southern District of New York, where she led the prosecution of Sean Combs. Spokesman for the United States Attorney's Office in Manhattan declined to comment. Spokesperson said they did not immediately respond for any calls out of DOJ. She was highly regarded as an AUSA, successfully prosecuted Ghislaine Maxwell, the former associate. People have problems with that. Multiple gang members for a split verdict. Multiple gang members before the split verdict earlier this month. She did a prosecution there. She did some prostitution charges, went after Sean Combs with that. Blah, 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 blah. She's the biggest thing is that she's the former director of the FBI's daughter. And so people think that because of the things that he did, and he's probably narcissistic, and he was obviously a Biden action figure during the campaign, that guy means that she's a really bad person. I don't have evidence of that. I don't know anything about her personality. Most of you probably don't either, but we are quick to jump on it. So just another thing, wait for evidence. You could be a skeptic. You can act like she's bad simply because of her name, but that's actually kind of a biblical thing too. Seeing that sins of the father visited down on the children is a real thing. It's unfortunate. I don't care when people from the DOJ lose their jobs for whatever it's worth. I just think it's not great to celebrate simply because of a name, mostly because we don't know her career. We don't have access to her personnel records. All right, that's what I've got for today. I think I have something funny in here. God, I hope so. Do we have something funny? Let's see here. We've got a Jerome Powell video. That's not funny. We've got that lady. Of course, I've got one thing that we will laugh about. Make sure you're hitting the like button before you leave. Arnold Schwarzenegger singing is the best thing. The old Arnold Schwarzenegger that we remember, like from like the Turbo Man doll, like from the Jingle All the Way and all the fun stuff that he did. Also an American success story. Like when we used to idolize masculinity and huge muscles, and Sylvester Stallone versus Arnold was like the question. Here he is singing a song terribly. Like 5 of you guys have sent me this, so obviously you want to hear it. Let's play it. Arnold Schwarzenegger doing 1,000 Miles. There's something wrong with me because I really like that. I'm a big Arnold fan, even though he's kind of a turd lately. His movies are still great. Even the movies where he doesn't even speak, he's great. Go watch Conan. He doesn't even say anything. He doesn't even speak English in that, and it's still good. All right, that's it for today's show. We're going to do Friendly Friday tomorrow. I hope you're having an okay week, and, consider what's being misled. Doesn't mean you have to quit. Don't be a weakling. Don't be considered a weakling. Don't get wrapped around the axle with what you can't prove. That's all I've got for today. We're going to send you over to the American Radicals broadcast, which is going on Rumble. It's rumble.com/amradpod. If you're watching us on YouTube, if you're watching us on X, if you're watching us over on Rumble, make sure you've liked it. Give us a 5-star review. If you're watching on Spotify, I'm not going to put the graphic up. Hope I see you guys again tomorrow for our Friendly Friday, and hope you have a fantastic Thursday, whatever the heck you're doing. All right. God bless you. See you then.
Thanks for listening to The Kyle Seraphin Show, streamed live weekdays on rumble.com/Kyle Seraphin. Follow Kyle on Twitter, Truth Social, and Instagram @Kyle Seraphin.